everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. No, someone in Australia. So hope you're well. And today we have our month live with FEESP. Roberto Watanabe is here with us, and he will finish the book in the realms of mediumship today. Today, the last part in the book, and in July, he will start another book, Mechanics of Mediumship. So it's good. It's 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 nice to have you all here. So thank you, Patti. Patti is with us. Maria Célia Ribeiro. Good evening. Good afternoon for you, Maria Célia. So Roberto, good evening. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine, thank you, Esteban.
Okay. I want
Hello,
you to
everybody.
emphasize. Thank you very much for your help here with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
glad to be here with you again.
Yeah. I can see some people are joining us. Uh, let's do our initial prayer and then we can start.
Okay,
So let's raise up our thoughts with our mentors of this life, mentors of ESP. Ask them to enlighten ourselves, to guide us in order to say the right things, in order to touch everyone who gonna listen us today and help them to evolve, help them to make better decisions. So be it. Amen. Okay. So let me put here. Okay, can you see the screen?
yes, I can.
Okay, off you go, my friend. It is with you.
Okay, Esteban, thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be with you again. And today we are going to finish this book in the realms of mediumship. We saw it in 5 parts, and now we are going to see the last part, the sixth part. And in this book, as we have seen, the spirit, Andre Luis, uh, who is a discarnate spirit, he's dictated this book to the famous medium in Brazil, whose name is Chico Xavier. His photo is here uh, on, on this slide, and he is narrating, telling us about the studies that he did uh, in the spiritual realm, from the point of view of the spiritual realm, but study of mediumship here on earth. He and his friend Hilario and their instructor Aulus, they are visiting some spiritist centers here on earth, and there they are studying the many types of mediumship that we have been seeing all these 5 weeks before, and now we will finish today. We are now in the chapter 27. There are 30 chapters, so we are going to see the last 3 chapters. There is one chapter more, but we are going to skip this one because it's not relevant in the whole context of the book. Okay. What is interesting, this chapter 27 here, whose title is Mediumship Gone Astray, is that here André Luis is demonstrating to us how we should not apply the faculty of a mediumship, and that's why it is interesting here, because he's describing a situation where on a certain night accompanied by his friend Hilario and their instructor Aulus, they went to a private home, right? So then he says that they entered a small room in a certain private house, and there a group of people was praying. So they were reunited there to, let's say, to practice mediumship, but not in the correct way. And here it's going to show us that, right? So then he says that in that small room, uh, besides the group of people, incarnate people who were there, there were also several spirits. Right? Whenever we say spirits, we please understand that are discarnate spirits, right? So several spirits in terrible shape were there, seeming less evolved than the men and women taking part in the meeting. So there were a group of men and women incarnate there, and there were also several spirits which seemed to be less evolved than the incarnate people there. And the group was led by Quintino. Quintino is, let's say, the incarnate director of that group, and the faculty of mediumship that was being practiced there was psychophony, which is uh, we can say talking medium, right? Is the is the mediumship faculty where the spirit, I spirit, talks through the body of the medium, and psychophony was the main phenomena, Andrea Luis says, right, in that meeting. And the problem there is that the meeting was totally devoted to the material interests. So that is not a correct way, right, of applying mediumship, the mediumship faculty. And because of that, the room was full, Andrea Luis says, of dense and disagreeable fluids, and the spirits were communicating through two mediums. So from the incarnate group people there, two were mediums, right? So, and we're going to see also that there were two spirits that were answering the questions from people there on that in that room. And one of the communicating spirits, who his name was Raimundo. So Raimundo was conversing, the spirit, right? The scarlet spirit, Raimundo were conversing with a woman whose frivolous talk inspired the pity, Andrea Luis said, right? So this woman was there, the incarnate woman was there, and asking the spirit to resolve a problem that she had, right? So then she said, right, I needed the money from the institute of which I am a harmed creditor. And then the spirit answered, right? Be patient, dear sisters. We are working on it for you. Huh? So, and then she said, well, the solution is urgent. You need to help me. So go to the office of that grumpy director and get the papers moving. So you see that is a complete material interest context here, right? So the woman went there just to have her problem resolved by the spirit, right? And in the context of a correct mediumship, this kind of thing doesn't make sense, right? So Allan Kardec, um, the Spiritism Codifier, in the book, the Medium's book that we studied a couple of years ago, he always recommends, right? Recommends that mediumship is not should not be devoted to material interested issues, right? So, and that is what is going to happen here. Then another situation there was that a middle-aged gentleman, right, addressed the Teotonio. Teotonio was the other spirit there, and such man was complaining indiscreetly, André says. And he said, right? He said, I've been waiting for 4 months now for a favorable decision regarding the job I was promised. Couldn't you take care of it? Huh? So he's demanding a solution from the spirit. And then the spirit replies, right? So what do you want me to do? And then Teotonio, he says, well, I know that the company's manager is not favorable to, to me having the job. So help me getting him interested in the good resolution of my case. In other words, help me to get him employ me, right, in that company. So again, just material interest. And what we know is that the spirits by themselves, they cannot resolve such problems, right? Because they are there on the spiritual realm, and we are this woman, this man here. They are here in the physical realm, and asking about the problems of our physical realm that should be resolved here, huh, and not there, with involvement of the spiritual realm. So that's why it doesn't make it much sense. And then that means that, for example, I spirit could guarantee the man, for example, that he would get the job he wants to have, right? So, but the spirit can guarantee, but he cannot assure that is going to happen. So, in that case, such kind of a spirit is not obviously is not an evolved spirit, right? So, uh, in some way, they are cheating. That's let's say the guy here, right? And well, the conversation here indicates that such spirit had promised it, right? The Teutonius the job, right? So we see here that the whole context doesn't make sense in practical terms, right? And so that's why the title of the chapter is Mediumship Gone Astray, right? And then in the meantime, Raimundos, the other spirit, uh, his attention was diverted by another woman who was asking him, right? And the problem of the woman was, well, she says, I can see my daughter accepting the marriage proposal of such a despicable man. Couldn't you get him out of our lives? So in this case, there was a man who wanted to marry her daughter, and she didn't want that to happen. And then she was asking about the spirit to solve that problem to her by, let's say, getting that man out, right, of their lives. And then the spirit, Raimondo, answers that subserviently. So meaning that probably he said, well, I will see what I can do, right? And the conversation continued between the spirits and the clients, right? The group of people, encountered people that were there in that room. So all of them just asking for material interest issues, right? So André Luis, he says that he was surprised to see such individuals viewing the communications just as a form of unethical exploitation, because all of them could have their problems resolved by the spirits, and having no effort by the part of them, right? So that's why André says is an unethical exploitation, right, of the spirits. So that is an interesting example here, right, of a wrong application of mediumship. And then the instructor Aulus, he 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 pointed out that the experience was necessary to André Luis and Hilario, to complete their current study of a mediumship, because they have seen many kinds of a mediumship, correct ones and incorrect ones also, and this is an example of an incorrect application of a mediumship. And so I was explained that what they were seeing there was a mediumship gone astray, right? Where lazy incarnate and discarnate spirits live in an environment of mutual exploitation, right? So they want to resolve the problem without any effort, right? And then they despise the opportunities of worthwhile work, looking for ephemeral gains to accommodate themselves to indolence, right? So that was the situation there. And but then all says, but the day of a torment will come, right? Compelling them to move and to act to better understand the imperative of a progress. If you want to progress in our lives, we must let's say fight for that, right? And not well, giving that problem to someone else to resolve, right? We should resolve for ourselves, and that is what is shown this in this chapter. Um, then Aulus glanced, take a look on the group over the group's director and the mediums, and he added, right, Raimundo and Teotonio, who were the two spirits. They are fascinated by Quintinos, who is the incarnate director of that group. They are fascinated by Quintino's request, and they act as devoted students looking up for their mentor in the case of Quintino, right? And but then Paulo says, as soon as he, Quintino, and the mediums uh, discarnate, because there were two mediums there, they will be assailed by the two spirits there on the spiritual realm, right? After they pass away, and then those two spirits will be asking for their guidance and help there on the spiritual realm, right? So, and he said most probably later on the future to come, uh, victimizers and victims, in this case, victimizers are Quintinos and the two mediums, right? And victims are the two spirits. So that's an opposite situation. Where in this case, if we think about obsession, the obsessor were the incarnated ones, right? And the ones who were being obsessed were the spirits, and they will be reunited probably in the future in the same family, right? As parents and children, right? Meaning that probably Quintinus will reincarnate again in the future, and then he will receive those two spirits as his sons, for example, right? So that's what all of this is explained here, right? And then he says, in the future, when they are reunited in a family, then they will set accounts, right, and readjust their attitudes, balancing out the debts they got in themselves in. That is the situation here. So we see that what we always say in spiritism, right? The law of cause and effect, right? We can do whatever we want, right? Now in our present incarnation, but that actions will have a consequence, right? So, and then that's why I will explain here the situation today and what is, probably is going to happen in the future as a consequence to resolve the problems raised by all the present situation. Well, in next chapter, André Luis is going to show us a physical effect phenomenon. It is something that is very rare nowadays, right? But here we were in the first half of the last century. Uh, the book was written by 1940, 1950, between this period. And then Well, in this situation here, the three guys, and Aulus, Andrea Luis, and Hilario, on another day at night at 8 p.m., they went to another home, right? So private home again. So it wasn't an spirited center, but was a small apartment. And in that small apartment, a materialization phenomena would be performed, right? So for the materialization phenomena to occur, which is a very complex phenomena, there is lots of a preparation from the spiritual realm workers, right, before the materialization to occur. And then so as they are there they are seeing everything from the spiritual realm, they can see what the spiritual workers are doing in that room, in that apartment, before the phenomena, right? So that's why they enter this apartment, and then they see that the place set up for the work consists of two rooms, a living room connected to a small bedroom. And in the bedroom uh, was the medium, right? The bedroom accommodated the medium, a young man, while 14 individuals were gathered in the living room. So you see the situation here, the medium stays separated from the other people there, right? On a separate room. And then two of them, of those 14 individuals, all incarnate, of course, uh, the medium also incarnate, of course, and two of those 14 individuals were alien women. So the sick women who wished to garner the friendly assistance of materialized spirits. So those two women went there to that meeting to receive assistance from spirits, from materialized spirits, right? So that's what's gonna happen here. And then André Luis noticed that the cleansing of the environment was underway. So he saw delicate instruments for the emission of healing rays that were being placed in the room by spiritual workers, right? And the ionization of the environment was effectuated with bactericidal devices. All of this on the spiritual realm, right? Not on here on the incarnate realm. And the medium received effective aid in his organic field. So uh, because such materialization phenomena is very delicate, then the medium must receive all support on his body, right, the physical body. That's why Andalus says that the digestive, circulatory, and visceral systems uh, was being stabilized, right, before the phenomena to occur. And you also see here that the on the spiritual realm, the spiritual workers, they were manipulating some instruments, right? So meaning that there are instruments there on the spiritual realm. This instrument for the emission of healing rays and the bactericidal devices, right, to clean the environment, right, from bacteria. So that's all that was going to happen there. Of course, only Andrea Luis, Aulus, and Hilario that were on the spiritual realm could see what will be what was happening. The 14 people there, of course, they could not see anything of this. Right? Then Andrea Luis says the lights were turned off and an opening prayer was said. So the beginning of the the meeting, let's say the official beginning of the meeting, and then the group began singing some evangelical hymns to stabilize the vibration in the room. So such um, evangelical hymns is very important to harmonize well the environment. And then the discarnate co-workers extracted the energies from persons and objects in the living room, as well as from nature outside. So you see that the energies that are going to be utilized in this materialization phenomenon are extracted from the people there, right? From the 14 people that were there, and also for some objects, and also from nature outside. From nature, you can imagine, for example, some energies that they extract from plants, for example, or from animals, right? So, meaning that such energies are extracted mainly from living beings, right? Either humans, animals, or plants, right? So they combine all of them, and also the main energy here, the main element here is from the medium. We are going to see, right? And but the the elements from the medium are combined with all these other energies to have the phenomena to occur. And such Andali said here, right? Such energy were combined with elements from the spiritual realm to turn the medium room into a complex laboratory. Huh? And then the medium that were there was there on that separate bedroom. He left his body, meaning that he left his physical body, which laid inert on the bed, the physical body, right? So kind of a disengagement from the physical body. The medium, the spirit of the medium, with his perispiritual or his spiritual body, disengaged from his physical body, always connected by there is a link, right, between the physical body and the spiritual body. And then, under the control of discarnate technicians, and he says, the medium began to expel ectoplasm. So ectoplasm is a kind of element from the medium. It's a flexible paste, much like a viscous semi-liquid jelly. Right? So, and such a kind of a element, let's say, substance, let's say, which is expelled from the physical body of the medium, uh, it came out through every pore of the medium's body, especially from the natural orifice, right? Like the mouth, nose, and ears. We are going to see a picture next slide, right? And the ectoplasm flowed in reptilian movement, so that meaning that such a substance is very moved, right? It moves, and the accumulated on the lower part of the medium's body. So let's see on a picture here. This is a picture from a medium, famous medium here in Brazil, called Peixotinho was his name, right? And is something that happened also on the first half of the last century, right? So you see that here on a somnambulistic state, and he's expanding. You see this white substance here from his mouth, from his nose, and from his ears also. You see all this white substance coming out of these ears, for example, from his mouth and from his nose. And you see that it accumulated here beside his head. And you see also that he's a face, a women face is forming here, right? From this substance. So this is what we call materialization, right? So this is the beginning of a materialization process. So, but the intention here is to show you what is such a substance called ectoplasm, right? So it's this kind of substance here. And in this situation, as Andrea Luis explained, the spirit of the medium and his perispirit are disengaged from his physical body, right? So meaning that the ectoplasm is something that comes out of his physical body, right? So that's what's going to happen here. Then in the room, Andrea Luis says, a large mass of a milky silvery, you see it looks like milk, right? The ectoplasm. Milk silvery ectoplasm accumulated in abundance. It was a light, pliable material needed for the materialization. So such material is going to be utilized for the materialization, right? And then The material utilized in the materialization phenomena could be divided into three essential elements, Andrea Luis explained. Right? So first is what Andrea Luis called the A fluids, representing the superior and subtle forces from the spiritual realm. So you see that besides the energy from the incarnated people there on the room, from the nature, either plants or animals, and also and the mediums, ectoplasm, uh, also some energies from the spiritual realm is are utilized right here, which under is called the A fluids. The B fluids define the resources of the medium and the incarnate assisting him. So the 14 people that were there. Not all of the 14, because in the case, you remember that two of them were two women, two sick women, right? So in such kind of a phenomena, they would not utilize any fluid from that women, right? Because they were sick. They were not in a position to cooperate, right, in such kind of phenomena. And the sea fluids are made up of energy state from nature, huh? Like I said, from plants, for example, or from animals, right? And so these are the three kind of fluids which are going to be utilized here for the materialization to occur. And then Andrea Luis says the medium out of his body, meaning the spirit of the medium with his perispirit, his spiritual body, would incorporate a discarnate nurse in order to assist the ill women. So the two women that were there, the two sick women that were there, they were going to be assisted by a discarnate nurse, which would, let's say, act through the materialized body of the medium. So that's what's going to happen here. It's a little bit complex, but that's what's going to happen, right? So that's why how that happened, right? So Andrea Luis explained. Once the spiritual workers there enveloped the medium's spiritual body in a large ectoplasmic robe, the nurse joined him to guide his movement. So you see, the medium's physical body were there, inert on the bed, right? From the physical body came out the ectoplasm, right, from his physical body. Such ectoplasm, and then the medium with his perispirit was disengaged from the physical body. Then what the spirit workers do? They take the ectoplasm from the medium's physical body, combine with all the other fluids, the A fluids from the spiritual realm, and the C fluids from nature, and also the B fluids from the people there on the meeting, and then they form a kind of a cloth, right? A ectoplasm robe, Andrea Luis says. And then such ectoplasm robe envelop the spiritual body of the medium, which is disengaged from his physical body. And then because the medium with his spiritual body only, or his perispirit, cannot be seen, right, by the incarnate people there. But when his spiritual body is enveloped by such ectoplasmic robe, which was formed by all those three fluids, then his physical body become tangible, we could say, right? Then they could be seen, for example, for the people there on the room, on the living room. And this medium, this materialized body of the medium, spirit, then is guided by the discarnate nurse, right? So meaning that the discarnate nurse will guide the materialized body of the medium like you like an object, right? Like an instrument. And then under the nurse's guidance, under Luis says, uh, the mediums, materialized the body of the medium, moved about uh, he moved about in materialized garments to the living room. Right? He goes to the living room. And then there on the living room, this current nurse, she assisted the two sick women by treating them with the healing rays. Healing rays, you can imagine as a he gave some passes, right? Some passes on the two women in order to help their cure, right? So that's the whole phenomena here, right? So it's a situation where a discarnate spirit, in this case, this nurse, is going to assist two incarnate sick women with through the materialized body of the medium. So that is gonna what is gonna what is happening here, right? So that is an example of a physical effects. A little bit complex to understand, but you can also later you can uh, well read the book and then you can have more details, right, about the phenomena. And then the while the healing work was being was happening, uh, Andrea Luis says that an apport phenomena also happened. Apport means a transport of apport phenomena is a phenomena where an object, uh, normally a small object, is transported from somewhere else to the room where the people were there, right? So then Andrea Luis explained that a cheerful spirit took a small amount of the medium's materialized energy in his hands of the spirit, right, and left. So the spirit took some part of the medium's energy, and then he went out, and then a few moments later, that spirit returned with some flowers, some flowers of real flowers, right? Which were distributed to the incarnates there in the room, right? So what he it had done, right? The such spirit, he had taken just a tiny amount of ectoplasm from the medium to materialize it, and Luis says only the thumb and the index finger, right? So so that you can imagine the spirit with his spiritual body, he takes part of the ectoplasm from the medium and let's say just cover part of the thumb and the index finger, so that he can uh, he can go out there on the garden, for example, and then he pick the flower, right? He picked the flower from the garden, and then he brought it there into the room. So that what happened according to what Andrea Luis explained here. So it is also a kind of a materialization, right? But it's a materialization only of the thumb and on the index finger, just to pick up the flower, right? So that's why Andrea Luis said that that was sufficient to pick the flowers and bring it into the room. But then another question raised here, because let's imagine that the room was closed, right? Windows and doors were all closed. So, and the spirit brought some flowers from the garden. Well, how could such flowers pass through the wall, for example, of the room, the walled room? So, or the close the door, right? So that's another question raised here by Andrea Luis. And then all of this, we're going to explain how it happens. And then that's why I always said, right, pointing out the flowers, that the flowers had passed through a masonry wall, always added. He explained, right, there are technicians here on the spiritual realm, of course, who are skilled enough to dematerialize the physical elements, meaning dematerialize the flowers, and we dematerialized, bring it into the room, and then reconstruct them straight away, and then materialize again, right, in the natural form. So, and how that happen? How is it something is possible to happen, right? So he explained, and something that we know today, right, or, according to physics laws. He said that in any construction of the physical realm, the cluster of atoms which compose an object, in this case the flowers, they are not solid fortresses, right? So they're not something that cannot be, uh, 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 cannot, for example, pass through a wall, right? Masonry wall. Just as in the case in our sphere of action. So uh, what he's saying that well, he will explain it below. Right? There is empty space in all formation, and through it, and through such a space, the elements interpenetrate. Right. So what we know today through physics, right? That an atom, for example, it is composed of a nucleon composed of protons and neutrons, and there are electrons, right, circulated around the nucleon. But most part of the atoms are empty. Right? So the atoms by itself is not something, a kind of a solid fortress, like it Paulo says here, right? So through these empty spaces where the elements can interpenetrate. Right? So that's how the skilled technician, this kind of technician, can dematerialize an object, in this case the flower, that the spirit took from the garden, and then uh, enter such flowers into the close the room where the people were there, and then inside the room he can materialize again the flowers, and then distribute it to the incarnate people there, right? So that that's also a kind of a physical involve apport phenomenon, right? A transport of objects. So there are two kind of phenomena that we are seeing here, right? The materialization of the spiritual medium spiritual body, and also this apport phenomenon. So, and then finally the gathering came to an end, and then spirit workers submit the medium to complete complex magnetic procedures through which the materializing substance, that is the ectoplasm, was returned to the physical body completely purified, right? Because you see, the ectoplasm was taken out from the medium's physical body, and they were manipulated. They were mixture combined with all the other fluids. But when the meeting is finished, the gathering is finished, then such ectoplasm must be, let's say, uh, submitted, like Andrew says here, to complex magnetic procedures to purify the ectoplasm of all those mixture, right, that they received there. And the ectoplasm also can be affected by people's thought, for example, right? So they must purify the ectoplasm in order to return to the medium's body again, right? So that's what uh, Aulus explained here, right? So there is situation we can see in other spiritist books that, for example, when such ectoplasm is taken out of the medium's physical body, if you, for example, measure the weight of the medium before expelling the ectoplasm, right? For example, let's say the medium have a certain weight, right? Uh, After the ectoplasm is taken out from his physical body, his weight reduces, right? Because material were taken from his body. But then at the end of the phenomena, when the ectoplasm are returned to his physical body, then his weight return to the normal, right? So meaning that ectoplasm in some way are composed of material, material from it's composed of a matter, right? From the physical medium physical body. Then after he received the exoplasm again in his body, then the medium wake up a little bit drowsy, right? Because he was all this phenomena uh, get him tired, right? Because it's a complex phenomena, and then they leave, right? that apartment there. So that was their study in there. Actually, it was their last study, right, on mediumship here on Earth, right? Then we skip one chapter, as I said, and then we go here to the 30th chapter, right? Whose title is closing page, and then Andrea Luis is narrating here, right? Having reached the end of their study on mediumship, Aulus, the instructor Aulus, made some final remarks. So Aulus said, well, mediumship as an instrument of life, uh, or an F is missing here, as an instrument of life appears everywhere. Right? So, is what we can saw through all the book, right? Mediumship happened not only on the spirit center, but you see in such a small apartment, and that private room, home, on the museum we saw the last month, on the street. Well, mediumship happens everywhere, right? So the farm and the he here always extend the meaning of a mediumship, right? And he said, well, the farmer is the medium for the harvest. The plant is the medium for the fruitification, right? For the fruits, and the flower is the medium for the fragrance, right? So everything is medium of everything if we utilize an ample signification, right? So, and then he said, man and woman embrace the marriage as a school of love and work, transform themselves into mediums of life through their children, right? Children, they give it life for another beings, right? Human beings, which are their children, and they take responsibilities for the materialization of former friends and enemies who become their sons and daughters. This is what we have seen through all this book, right? All the situation where, for example, I harmed some person on a previous life. Then today he's my obsessor is trying to harm me in return. Then in some way, then in the future, we will get close as a family, right? This obsessor, for example, can come as my son. Then we will transform, let's say, the hate into love, right? So that's what Alves explained here, right? Taking responsibility for the materialization of former friends, of course, huh? Those who were friends, but also enemies, right? Who become their sons and daughters. So in that case, I would certainly have some problem with this son, which in the past were which today are my enemy, right? But as I am his dad now, I must educate him, right? So love him, and for that purpose, some friends from the past will also come, for example, as my daughter, for example, and will help me, right, to resolve all those problems from the past. So meaning that at the end, everything is resolved by love, right? Love is what is eternal in our world and in the universe. Hate is not something eternal; it's just temporary. So, and then Aulus was to leave for another important mission, right? The following day, and then that's why next morning they say they meet, and after a short prayer said by Andrea Luis, he gave a farewell embrace to both Aulus. He gave a farewell embrace to Andrea Luis and Hilario, and then he leaves, right? He leaves. Then Andrea said, well, in mute tears of gratitude, uh, they watched him until he vanished in the distance. But then the two of them, Andrea Luis and Hilario, remembered that there are another task awaiting them, and then they also left to assist a sick child. Right? So this is a situation for another book. Right? So with this, we close this interesting book where we can have a very good idea of how mediumship happens, right? Here on Earth, here between us, right? So, and in this case, explained all this mediumship phenomena explained by Andrea Luiz, who is looking all of this from the spiritual realm point of view, right? So that is interesting because, of course, he can see much more than we can, right? Because he are looking from the spiritual realm point of view. So he can see the spirit working on the other side. Well, they can see the obsessor. They can see everything that is happening on the spiritual realm, and also they can see all everything that is happening here on the physical realm. So that's why we have this double point of view, right? Something that we incarnate cannot have, right? So with this we ended this book, which is a more practical point of view. My intention here was to show before the practical mediumship in practical terms, and then after that we can see the theoretical terms, right? And that's what we are going to see in the next book that we start next month, which is the mechanics of mediumship. You see, the title explains, right? The mechanics of mediumship, how mediumship happens, right? So that's what is the theoretical part. And as you have the idea of the practical part, then it I suppose that I presuppose that it will be easier to understand the theoretical part, right? So thank you to be with us all through all this book, and it's see you next month on 15th of July. Okay, Esteban. You're mute. Mute.
Yeah,
Oh,
15th of July is good. It's great. And today we have a lot of people today here. Wow, it was very good, very encouraging.
oh, very good.
Yes,
Yeah. Maria Celia is, I think is from here. I think no, she is from FESP.
confess. Yeah,
Yeah.
Deborah Santana now just join us as well.
Mhm.
So
That is all it does.
yeah, good.
Okay.
Good, good, good. It's interesting. Yeah, I like, especially I like the way you put it this book first in order to show the practice,
Mm.
then I'll go to the theory,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's gonna be kind of boring.
Yeah.
You know a
Yeah.
lot of things and how it works.
Yeah.
So now we can make the connections between, okay, oh, that happened because of this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's why I encourage everyone and invite everyone to stay tuned for the July 15th, in which Roberto will start a new book. It's more theoretical, but
Mm.
it is such important. We do need to study, but at the same time we need to practice.
Yeah. And the theoretical part, just to advance, Esteban, the first maybe the first two or three two parts will be very complex because André Luiz utilized physics to explain the mediumship
Yeah,
phenomenon.
yeah,
Electricity, it's a little bit complicated, but we'll try to, to facilitate the understanding.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so Patty is asking, it will be another interesting book to be studied. Yeah, Patty, we will study from July onwards
Yeah,
the medium mechanics of
me-
mediumship.
mechanical mediumship. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, my friends, can you do a farm prayer?
Sure. Okay. So thank you for being with us today, and let's get our final prayer, and let's thank all the spiritual benefactors. André Luiz here, right? All this fine work that he's did on the um, first half of the last century to bring us all this knowledge about mediumship, where we can understand the correct and also the incorrect utilization, right, of such an important faculty. And with the help of all the spiritual benefactors, we thank all of them. We also thank Jesus for this uh, this new opportunity to be reunited here in His name in order to learn a little bit more about the Spiritist doctrine. And finally, we thank God by the opportunity of this incarnation where we can have such a clarification of important phenomena involving our life on Earth. So be it.
Amen. Amen. Okay. So, my friends, I want to say thank you, Roberto. Thank you very much. FESP, thank you. Cardiac Radio, thank you for being here and giving this space for us as well. I'll see you on 15th of July.
Okay.
Thank
See you.
you. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.